lesson. Today's learning goal is I can identify conditional equations, contradictions, and identities. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, I want you to solve this equation. Okay, go ahead and hit pause right now and solve this equation and do the check over on this side. What you should have found is that x equals negative 14. And if we do the check, negative 14 plus 10 is negative 4. Do keep change on this side. Negative 3 times negative 4 is 12. Negative 2 plus 14 is 12 as well. Okay. So these are the equations that we've been doing so far, where we simplify one side and then, or the sides, and then start moving the getting rid of the constants, and then onto one side, and then getting the terms with x onto the other side, multiplying by the reciprocal to get x equals some number. These type of equations are called a conditional equation. Okay, that's because both sides of the equation are equal to each other under the condition that x equals negative 14 in this case. Okay, these kind of equations have one solution. Okay, so only when x is negative 14 are both sides of the equation going to be equal to each other. Here, go ahead and pause this video and try solving this one out on your own. If you did try to solve this out on your own, you may have ran into a difficulty, because once we distribute, we get 15x minus 9 equals 15x plus 5. Add 9 to both sides, or subtract 5, either one. By adding 9 to both sides, and we get 15x equals 15x plus 14. We subtract 15x from both sides, we get 0 equals 14. That becomes an issue. Okay. This type of equation is called a contradiction, because both sides of the equation are never equal to each other. Okay, and that means you can tell that it is a contradiction equation when you try to solve for x and you get a false statement at the end. So this false statement right here is that 0 equals 14. Well, obviously 0 does not equal 14. Under no circumstances does 0 ever equal 14. Okay, that's a false statement. These kind of equations have no real solutions. Okay, no real solutions because, as some of you guys may know or remember from a long time ago, there's something called imaginary numbers, and there may be an imaginary solution, but in this case there's no real solution. So therefore, this is called a contradiction. And there's no real solution. This sign right here, a 0 with a line through it like that, this means no real solution. Okay, so instead of writing no real solution, you can simply do a 0 with a line through it. Okay, that means no real solution. Go ahead and try to solve this one out on your own. You may have run into a problem with this one as well. So if you do this correctly, you distribute, get 3b plus 9 plus 2 equals 11 plus 3b. Then you combine like terms. 3b plus 11 equals 11 plus 3b. Subtract 11 from both sides, you get 3b equals 3b. Subtract 3b from both sides, you get 0 equals 0. Well, this is not a contradiction, because in the contradiction you get a false statement. 0 equals 14, which is false. Here we're getting a true statement. 0 does equal 0. So we got an issue right there. So this cannot be a contradiction. What this kind of equation is called an identity, because both sides of the equation are identical to each other. Okay? You can tell that an equation is an identity when you reach a point when solving where both sides are the same. So here, right here, 3b plus 11 equals 3b plus 11. Both sides are exactly the same. Okay? That means that they are identical to each other. Or you can continue simplifying all the way down, or solving all the way down, and you get to 0 equals 0. When you get to 0 equals 0, you definitely know that both sides are identical to each other. And these kind of equations have infinite solutions. Okay, and so we call this identity infinite solutions. That means I can put any number in for b, and the equation would end up being the same on both sides. So if I put 1 right here, let's try that out. If I were to put 1 in, If I put 1 in, we would do something like this, where we simplify down and get 14 equals 14, so both sides are equal if b equals 1. If I did 2, I'd get the same thing. If I did 3, I would get the same thing. 4, if I get the same thing. It doesn't really matter what number you use, you would end up getting both sides to be equal to each other because both sides are exactly the same. Okay. Now, the number one mistake people make with these type of questions is thinking that when you get down to x equals 0, that means that there are infinite amount of solutions or no solutions at all. So go ahead and try to solve this one on your own. If you do that, you should find that x equals 0 at the end, because you can see here you get 4x equals 0 and x equals 0. Okay. Now, x equals 0 is a perfectly okay solution. If we check our solution, you can find that when x equals 0, both sides equal negative 17. Okay, so don't confuse the fact that if x equals 0, that doesn't mean it's a identity or a contradiction. That it's just a condition, because when x equals 0, that is the condition when both sides are equal to each other. So go ahead and try number 1 and number 2 on your own and see what you get. If they are either going to be conditional equations, contradictions, or identities, and if they are, that should say conditionals. If they are conditionals, please determine what x should equal, or the variable should equal. So here, it's going to be m equals 0. Okay, so this is a conditional equation. The condition is m equals 0. That's when both sides are equal to each other. Okay. Over here, this one's going to be a contradiction, because you get down to the part where it gets 0 equals 10. That is a false statement. Therefore, it's a contradiction, and there are no real solutions. Be sure to state that there are no real solutions on a quiz or a test. Therefore, letting me know that you understand what it means for an equation to be a contradiction. That means that the equation has no solutions. Go ahead and try number 3 and number 4 on your own. Here, what you should have found is that b equals 7. Okay, so this is going to be a conditional equation because there's one solution. Over here, you get down to the point right here or right here where you see that both sides are equal to each other. That means that this is an identity. That means you can put in any number in here, okay, to solve and get both sides to be the same. Okay, so a good way to try to double check if your identities or equations that you think are identities are actually identities is put in a random number in here and see if it works. If it works, there's a good chance that it's going to be an identity because it's just a random number. Go ahead and try number 5 and number 6 out on your own. Here you should have found that both sides are equal to each other, therefore it's an identity and there are infinite solutions. Okay. Again, make sure that you write down when you answer one of these questions, write down that it's an identity. It tells me you know what type of equation it is and what it means. To be an identity means that there are infinite solutions. Number 6, you should have found, is a contradiction, meaning that you get to this point, 11 equals 0. That's a false statement. It's a contradiction, and there are no real solutions. The last 2 questions on your guide notes are, if you think an equation is an identity, what is one way to check if it is? Okay. And also, why are equations that do not have any real solution called contradictions? Okay. So go ahead and write those down in your notes, and also please send me a message on Schoology with your answers to these 2 questions, and I hope to see you guys soon. Stay safe.